Okay, looks like we're live. I haven't turned the light on, which I should do. Let me know whether you can hear and see me. I will adjust the camera. But I've got this new horror banner I wanted to show you first with a whole bunch of stuff. I like the fact it's got scantily clad victims, monsters, charred pedophiles, lycanthropes, decapitated heads, poltergeists, goblins, everything you want. So let me know whether you can hear me and see me. And I will adjust the camera now if it doesn't readjust itself. See what it does? This camera is going random at me. Stop that. Stop that. I did this the other day when I had an appointment too, so it's really pissing me off. Yep. Hi. Okay. Thanks, Patrick's coming through. Yep. You can see and hear me. All good. And Luna is going mad because I haven't let her out of the house. She wants to go out, but I haven't let her because I don't want to. And then I have to get up. And hi, Ralphia. Yeah, I'd have to get up and keep letting her in and out. It'll be a whole thing, so I'm not going to do that. And usual camera hassles. Shit. I wonder if I turn my screen, whether that'll work. Hang on. Yep. Okay, here we go. Let's see what I can do with this. Bloody camera. I'm beginning to hate this camera. So yeah, so welcome to the live stream. And the live stream is going to be partly about AI SLOP, but also about other things. Tom says I'm certainly an early bird. Yeah, it's 7 o'clock in the morning here, which is kind of weird. But I've been up since 4:30 because I woke up with all of these ideas about what I wanted to do for the live stream, churning through my dear little head, and that happened. I'm going to kill this camera. I'm going to destroy it. And then it moved again. Yeah, we're doing fine, Dick. Apart from this frigging camera, I may be on the side of the screen. Hi, Carol. How you doing? Destroy the camera. Please don't turn it off. We want to watch it. Yeah, I'm not going to turn it off. I'm not going to turn the camera off, but it is annoying that it does this, and I'm going to have to reprogram it. It's a 360 link camera, and if it keeps doing this kind of stuff, I'm going to have to use my Osmo Pocket as a streaming camera. Yeah, it does have a mind of its own. So let me just, I'm going to disattach it here. See what I can do. Here we go. Get my nose. Stay there. And then it moved. Oh, this is going to be so freaking bad. Look, as long as I'm on the screen in some way, I suppose that's what matters. Stop it. I suppose that's what matters. Sometimes that works. But yeah, and it's moving. Look at that. It's moving. I'm not sure what it's keeping in the middle of the screen, but it's doing something. Maybe the camera knows the cat's looking for the girl. No, I've got no idea what it's doing, but we're going to work with it. Stop it. Let's see if I tap it twice, what happens. It goes back there, which is not what I wanted, but if I'm not going to move it down, yeah. Stop. Okay, this random camera is choosing me the hell off. I mean, I was blinking for some reason. Okay, that's going to have to be it. 2 orange clasps from that toolbox. It seems to have eyes. Yeah, there's a few clasps. Luna is secretly controlling the camera. No, she's not. Luna is so stupid she couldn't control anything. She really is a random beast. I've got another option, I think, if I can reach the option. But we'll see how we go. Yeah. This is the worst one yet. It is. Look, if I move, it moves. If I do that, I wonder what happens if I move. Nothing. So if I go like this, I'm going to tilt the screen down. See if that helps. No, it doesn't. It doesn't help at all. As long as it doesn't start talking and sounding like Robert Vaughn from Demon Seed. Yeah. Hopefully it won't. I think I got a solution. I worked it out. I think. Though I probably haven't. Ho ho. Stay. Okay, I'm gonna. This is really annoying me. Anyway, I'm going to show you some stuff I got. If this camera stops being a camera, I picked up a couple of movie tie-in books. Haven't really bought much lately because I'm trying to pay off the camera I bought. But by the way, if anybody wants to put in a super chat, we've got the fart gun ready for super chats. We do have that available. Almost as though it knows you're going to talk shit about AI, says Ralph. That's possible. Though I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole. It's going to lead to madness. But I picked up 2 movie-related books. It only cost me a couple of bucks. So I happen to be in an area with an op shop. I got Johnny Spate's book of Till Death Us Do Part with Warren Mitchell on the cover. Classic TV series. And I didn't know that they had a book of it. And the book's actually by John Burke, who also wrote a lot of the novelizations of the Hammer horror movies. So I got that. And the other one I got, it's a movie I haven't seen in a long time. And it's not a movie where the UK film industry covered itself in glory. Raymond Hitchcock's Percy, which was a movie starring Hugh Bennett, where he plays the man who first got a penis transplant. I don't expect this to be very erotic. A lot of it looks like it's a script, but yes, I got Percy and I got Till Death Us Do Part. And the weird thing is, it's actually in a religious op shop, a thrift store run by a church. So that's what I've got for you. So how's the weather where everybody is? It's like 5 degrees centigrade here, which is unseasonably cool. We had storms last night. Dick says he's got the network release of the Percy movie. Yeah, I mean, those titillating movies of the 70s, we all know I'm a fan of those movies. But I think the European ones were much cooler in most cases. I've got a fondness for the Robin Asquith ones, to be honest with you. But I kind of like Bedroom Berserker and movies like that. And French titillating vampire movies, the Jean Rollin movies. DB Cooper says, cloudy, cool, and raining here in war-torn Portland, Oregon. Well, look, as long as you've got your frog army in Portland, you're going to do okay there, DB. So, just trust in the frogs and you're going to do okay because those frogs are fucking legendary. Tom says, big nor'easter moving into South New England tonight, batten down the hatches. Yeah, well, you chose to live in a place attached to a pole. Ralph says, had a first autumn feeling 66 degrees Fahrenheit in Florida. Alexa, what's 66 degrees Fahrenheit in centigrade?
66 degrees Fahrenheit is about 18.89 degrees Celsius.
18.89 degrees in real measurements. Yeah, so I've found a new way of working out, and this is kind of counterintuitive, but I found a new way of working out, which is to organize and catalog the movies in the back room. So I've got all of the boxed encased discs in the back room, but everything from about the letter from N to Z haven't been organized and haven't been cataloged in my database. And so I started doing that. So I've got a chair in there. I'm organizing things in alphabetical order, which is what I do with most of the things I've got. And I found out you get a real workout, a real good core workout, stretching and moving around and twisting and putting things on shelves and things like that. So that's my new exercise, is organizing the bookshelves in the back room. And I'm doing that partly because I want to do a video where I go through the collection I've got. And to do that, it's got to be in some kind of organized form. So I know I've got more than enough shelves, but I've really been, the last 2 days, I've been doing so much yoga organizing these bloody shelves that it's got very crazy. Carol says, dark clouds in Dover last few days. It's down to about 12 to 16. Australia is cold enough going into autumn. We're about 12 to 16. Yeah, we had some good days where it's like early mid-20s. And I'm looking forward to that because I think tomorrow I want to go to the Open Range Zoo and do a video for the Travel Channel at the Open Range Zoo because they've just opened the elephant enclosure and moved all of the elephants from the other zoo to the Open Range Zoo. They've got 9 elephants, 2 of whom are male. And so I want to see the new elephant enclosure. I want to do some footage of the meerkats. I want to take the safari ride around and do a bit of stuff with that. So I'm hoping the weather tomorrow picks up and I can get that video done. I'm using my imprint mug because imprint sent me all those nice box sets that I unboxed in the last video. So I thought I'd give them something of a plug. So yeah, that's my plan for the week. Apart from that, the usual stuff with the videos. But yeah, I'm hoping things will warm up, and that will be great if they do. I've got my sister and my brother-in-law and my nephew coming down from Sydney late next month, so I'm going to do some stuff with them. I've got a session. I've got another movie thing for Cinemaniacs in November. Did go to see a movie at the Cinemaniacs session last Saturday, not the days just passed, but last Saturday. We saw Martin, the George R.R. Martin, the George Romero vampire movie. We saw that on the big screen, which was kind of fun. And I won 2 things at the raffle. I won, what did I win? I won a T-shirt, which is about the size for my niece. And I also got a double pass to the next session, so I don't have to pay to go to the movies. Carol says, Roxy's loving our heating is coming on now, and she's got a spot in the library room where the pipes warm the floor. Yeah, we got that with Jill, our reclusive cat, where if I turn on the oil heater, she finds a place to hunker down next to that. Dick says, yeah, file mine alphabetical order A to Z for movies, the same separately for TV stuff in the larger groups for companies like BFI Network, Imprint, and separate in their own A to Z sections. Yeah, I get a bit random like that. I've got my umbrella stuff and my imprint stuff for the most part on separate shelves. And the imprint, because of those chunky box sets, I've also got them high up above the normal shelving as well. But you'll see that when I do the video. So I'm kind of organizing things there. The next thing to do after that, of course, is to organize this man cave and get things going. And to do that, I'm going to have to get rid of some stuff and I'm okay to get rid of it, but I find it exhausting finding out how, because I could get rid of it and sell it, but in order to sell it, I've got to put it online and things like that, and I don't really have the resources to do that, in the sense that I'm doing 4 videos a week. I'm doing research for those videos. I'm doing all that stuff. I'm doing the editing. I'm doing all of the things, and so I don't really want to spend the time doing stuff. Carol says, never enough shelf space or storage space. Yeah, that's one of the things that I'd really like about being wealthy, having enough storage space. I'm sure it would turn me into a real bastard, but I know that a bit more storage space, maybe another room, would do. And it'd see me out having another room with storage space. But I do have plans for the man cave here, which are going to require a bit of work, and probably a lot more of that yoga that I've been doing in the back room to get things organized. I know what I want to do with it in general terms. I've got some shelving units I want to replace with just shelving. And I'm kind of going, okay, I've got these 2 enormous boxes full of CDs, but I've also got Spotify. And do I want to keep the CDs, or do I want to find a place to sell them? I probably want to find a record store where I can just take the 2 big cases of CDs in after I've winnowed out the ones I absolutely want to keep, and just go, give me a number. Hi, Adam. Was watching a report of the commission with a mate last night. Loved it. Seen it before in the 80s. We had such a row afterwards. He rage quit. Has a film affected you like that? What you can do, Adam, is find my video that I did about Suspiria, the Dario Argento Suspiria, because I've got such a long history with that movie, which has a lot to do with mental health. So if you can find that movie, that video on the channel, if you type in Terry Talks movie Suspiria, and there's a red thumbnail on that one, you'll see the movie that I felt like that about. Dick says, it's great finding stuff, but probably have to do some changes myself at some time. And Carol says, I would love to come into money. We'll get a bigger place with bespoke cabinets and shelving for all the films and books. Yeah, absolutely. It's a real thing. And I've also got this growing awareness that I'm not going to read a lot of the books I've got. The reference books I like having, because if I'm going to do a video about something, I can just go down on the shelves and find something like this and use it as a reference point. Because with AI, and part of the theme of this particular live stream is going to be AI, I think the online ability we have to resource information is going to become increasingly unreliable. I think that having AI at the top of your search is the thin end of the wedge. There's going to be more and more stuff where AI comes in, and not because of any malice, but just because of the word salad large language models that AI is. We're going to get non-factual information, particularly about movies and other things that you look up as a reference point. And so I'm holding on to my reference books because I'll need to error check the enshittification of the internet. And that's such a useful term that Cory Doctorow came up with. Met Cory Doctorow once, a lovely guy. But enshittification is impacting a lot of things. But yeah, so I've got an increasing awareness of that. One of the other things that's happening online, as far as the channel is concerned, as far as my business is concerned, is that ad blockers are affecting my income by about 30%. I'm getting 30% less because ad blockers on YouTube, they put some code into the major ad blockers that are used for YouTube, which stop YouTube from realizing that I've got as much of an audience as I have. So people can be watching my videos and just say on a good video, it's about 1,000 people. But YouTube only recognizes 600 of them because of that code and the coding that the ad blocker has makes that particular view invisible to YouTube. So YouTube can't even realize at this stage that I've got the audience I've got. So the revenue goes down. The amount of money they give me for the ads goes down because they go, there's not that many people watching this, so we're not going to give you money. This is a case on every YouTube channel, they're down about between 30 and 40%. And it's purely because a third company, an ad blocking company, chose to put a particular kind of code onto their ad blocking software, which balks the way YouTube recognizes that somebody has an audience. Dick says, how's Sally? She's fine. She's in bed at the moment. She had a late night and she had a bit of nausea, but she's sleeping now. She's perfectly fine. DB Cooper says, interesting how every issue is YouTube results and their benefits and no one else's. I'm not sure they're benefiting from this at all because ad blocking software stops their revenue as much as it does mine. This is a third party who's decided to find a way for people not to pay for what they watch. And the way you pay for what you watch on YouTube is to watch the ads. That is the thing that lets creators create their videos. We don't do this for the love of it. And for the most part, we don't. Before you monetize, you do up to a certain point, and then you start getting monetized. But part of doing this, and yes, I am doing it for the passion of movies and wandering around places on the two channels. But at a certain stage, it becomes a business whether you want it to or not. And the business is being affected by people who don't want to pay me for my time and effort. And I can't do anything about that. I can discourage it verbally on the channel, which I do. But I don't try to do it in a pejorative way, saying that people are bastards for doing it or anything like that. But I do it in a way of encouraging people to realize what they're doing from the creators' end of things. More coffee because it's still early. But Dick says, just as you were mentioning about YouTube, we started getting a bit of buffering. It looks like the machines were listening. I'm not going to be paranoid about AI and machines and things like that. While we're talking about it, we know about AI SLOP, which is those AI created videos that I've actually found a good Wikipedia page about AI SLOP, which I really like. And for those of you who came in late and didn't bring your homework, AI SLOP is low-quality media made with generative artificial intelligence. It's characterized by an inherent lack of effort and is currently being generated in an overwhelming volume. The term has pejorative connotations similar to spam. Jonathan Gilmore, a philosophy professor at the City University of New York, describes the material as having an incredibly banal but realistic style, which is easy for viewers to process. Sorry about that. So that's what AI SLOP is. And I looked into it a little bit. I did a bit of research for this video. And there's some software called Sora 2, SORA2, which you can put in a prompt and it'll do things. And the one I saw was Elvis Presley as the captain of the Starship Enterprise in the old Star Trek series. And you can type that in as a prompt, Elvis as Captain Kirk. And Sora 2 will generate a video of Elvis Presley being the captain of the Enterprise. And you go, yeah, okay, cute. But it doesn't have any weight or inertia to it. It doesn't have mass. It doesn't have 2 minutes of anybody, however boring they are, however uninteresting they are. 2 minutes of a human being talking to you has so much more to it than AI SLOP does. I don't know whether that's going to change. and they're going to find a way to give it a little more heft. But at this stage, it's the only thing I can compare it to, and this is crude, is porn compared to sex with somebody you really like. Reality and talking to somebody and getting a video from a human being is a fully immersive experience if you let it be, and if it's done well. AI stuff is like looking at a naked picture of Margot Robbie, which, at a certain level, it's okay, but it ain't real, and it ain't immersive, and it will keep you amused for a little bit, but it doesn't have the messiness of a real human being. And Tom, you're right. Yeah, banal. That's a good word for it. It is banal, and I don't know whether it will ever stop being banal. I think there's a danger in it becoming very, very addictive. And I know that Hollywood wants to do it because then they don't have to deal with messy human beings. And I love the messiness of human beings. They're some of my favorite people. But on that note, Yucky Darley, how you doing? I'm getting a hat that says Cymru and has the Welsh dragon on it. So that's in my future there. Hey, how's things in Wales, mate? Adam says, I'm a messy human being. Yeah, absolutely, we all are. And I was thinking about this, and my mind makes connections between things that are in the news. Diane Keaton died. Fantastic actress. In July, I saw her on the big screen in Looking for Mr. Goodbar, which Cinemaniac showed at the Astor. And the ending of that movie had the whole audience silent, stunned. And the movie itself and Diane Keaton's acting in Looking for Mr. Goodbar blew me away. That is just such a complex piece of acting and a complex character. And she balances on that tightrope incredibly well all the way through it. And my mind went to AI will never be able to do what Diane Keaton did in Looking for Mr. Goodbar. And that complex, endearing but messed up character that she created, along with all of the other people, is something that has just a quality that you can't put into ones and zeros. Lee's looking for a trans pride flag to annoy the fash at Saturday's counter protest. Good. I hope you find one. Absolutely. And there are just so many good protests going on at the moment. Ralph says, when you mentioned AI actress last time, all I could think about was the movie Looker. Yeah, it's an iteration of that. And Tilly Norwood, the AI actress that I mentioned last time, is copping so much shit that if she was a real person, she'd be in rehab by now. Adam says, I don't know how to take Goodbye. Not seen it for 30 odd years. That ending. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. All I'd say about it, Adam, is it's a strong film. It is really strong. And knowing the arc that the character played by Diane Keaton goes through, and I'll give the character a name. I've got a tab here. What's the character name again? Teresa Dunn. That character, and knowing the arc she goes through, it's an incredible, and yeah, this is a cliche, but it's a journey that you go on with this character through her life. And the red flag boyfriends, the Richard Gere character, and ultimately the Tom Berenger character. And those people, you just go, you deserve better than that. It really hooked me, that movie. And seeing it again with Emma Westwood doing a talk about it beforehand was an incredibly powerful moment in cinema for me. But I'd recommend, if you can, Adam, watch it again, because apart from anything else, there's some really great needle drops in the movie. And Diane Keaton she got the Academy Award that same year for Annie Hall. She should have got it for Good Bar, but the Academy are a bunch of pussies. They couldn't give an award to a characterization of a woman who, at a certain level, is in control of her own sexuality. I think that may have freaked them out at the time. But it's a high recommend from me. Looking for Mr. Goodbar has risen in the ranks of my favorite 1970s movies, and it's maybe top 10. Adam says Goodbar was a super brave performance. Absolutely, it was incredibly good and incredibly rich and textured. And one of the things that's hardest to do in acting, it felt real, and that is that naturalistic, it feels real acting is not easy to do, but she nailed it. But yeah, so actually, I'm going to break a rule here. And what the hell? It's my channel. I can break as many bloody rules as I like, as long as YouTube doesn't find out. But this one's not going to affect them at all. Actually, went on a bit of a binge of watching movies this weekend because it's Monday here now, and because I didn't have to prepare and edit and record a video for today, I'm doing a live stream. I sat down and watched a lot of movies in between doing yoga, organizing those shelves, and getting a bit of core exercise in. I watched a bunch of movies. And I'm going to tell you what I watched on the weekend. I dipped into those imprint box sets and I watched Master of the World with Vincent Price, where his character Rober is kind of ambiguous because he's a man that's using the wrong means to the great end. He wants to cause peace in the world by blowing up all the armies. Peace in the world's a good idea. Blowing up all the armies from your flying battleship, the Albatross, was not a good idea. Dick says it's Sunday at 7:31 p.m. Yeah, so I watched Master of the World. Charles Bronson in his first hero role, in a sense. Lowish budget, but it kind of works. And Vincent Price's Rober with the bushy hairy caterpillar eyebrows is quite good in the movie. And again, it's an ambiguous character in the same sense that Captain Nemo is. And it is, of course, very parallel to Captain Nemo. But I kind of enjoyed Master of the World. It was a Saturday afternoon watch, and it's a Saturday afternoon matinee movie. And then I watched War Gods of the Deep, which also has Vincent Price in it, and Tab Hunter. And it's got some good character actors in the supporting roles too. David Tomlinson playing the comic relief's good in that. We've got John LeMessurier playing Priest, and he does a good job of it, about a weird underwater city off the coast of Cornwall, which is kind of a weird movie, but it looked great. It was a really nice print that Imprint put out for their Tales of Adventure box set. Really enjoyed rewatching that one. So I'd tag team those two Vincent Price movies together, and I enjoyed them. And I'm going to mention these again when I do my what I watched this month video, so I won't go any further than that. Then I watched a documentary called, what's it called? Hang on a sec. Let me just bring this up. It was a documentary that Sky in the UK did about Hammer as a movie studio, and it's very arty in some places. And they interviewed surviving people who'd worked for and with Hammer. And the documentary is called Hammer: Heroes, Legends, and Monsters. And it goes through the history of Hammer Studios with particular relationship to horror. They interviewed Caroline Munro. They interviewed Martine Beswick. They have archival interviews of Christopher Lee and other people. Really interesting little doco with some arty, farty little bits and pieces when they're interviewing people. But it gave quite a detailed history of the behind-the-scenes stuff with Hammer. And when Hammer really hit big with horror, a lot of the people behind the cameras were people who'd learned the skills of makeup and set design, production design, doing shit during World War II, doing camouflage against the Nazis during World War II, or being a combat photographer, taking photos of wounds so the doctors would know what to be prepared for when they were tending to the wounded. All of those people were working for Hammer. And so Hammer had this real life experience of true, real horror that informed the way they made horror movies in the 1950s and 1960s. And that was kind of interesting to check out too. I really liked the way they did that and the way they talked to people about it and the way they did their homework on a studio we all know and love. Can people still hear me? Because the chat seems to have frozen. And I know you're all mesmerized by me talking, but just let me know that you're still out there and that a meteor hasn't hit the Northern Hemisphere. Adam hears me, so there's that. Yeah, okay, great. Thanks, Lee and Adam and FG. How you doing, FG? Dick says, sounds like a cool documentary. It is. Tom says, Charles Bronson started Man with the Camera at 50s TV series. Watched a couple of episodes and discovered he wasn't a really good actor. Too bad. I look forward to watching more. Man with the Camera I like because I think the stories are good, even though Bronson was stiff. And the argument can be made that he pretty much was for most of his acting career. The scripts on Man with the Camera were pretty good, grounded, almost adapted documentary scripts. DB Cooper says, I'm following you just there to hang out with my non-verbal grandson, which keeps me kind of busy. Okay, that's wonderful that you're hanging out with your grandson, DB. Take care and good on you. Yeah, Carol says, just listening. Okay, cool. Dulcet Australian tones. What can you do? So I watched Hammer Heroes, Legends, and Monsters. And then I watched a movie from 2025, directed by Ethan Coen and his wife, Tricia Cook. And it's Honey Don't, which is about a small-town private investigator, Honey O'Donoghue, played by Margaret Qualley, who gets interested in a bunch of strange deaths that are occurring around a very dodgy church, where Chris Evans plays the pastor of this church, who's basically nailing anything that moves that's a woman. And it's also got Aubrey Plaza in it. It's kind of like low-key Coen Brothers. It follows up on Drive Away Dolls, the previous movie that Margaret Qualley did with Ethan Coen and Tricia Clark. It's fun. I enjoyed it a lot. It does have some Rudy nudie scenes with Margaret Qualley and Aubrey Plaza, which is a bonus. But I like the character Margaret Qualley plays in this. Yeah, a no-nonsense private eye in this little shit-kicking town in the California desert. And it works. It's got some really confronting bits. There's a bit of blood and guts. There's some quirky, small characters. It's very rainbow inclusive because the character Margaret Qualley plays is a lesbian and has a pretty good hit rate on one-night stands. Tom says, I love Honey Don't. It's so much fun. It is. It really is good. And the twist in the last quarter of the movie is rock solid and scary as shit. Really liked it. It's part of a trilogy that Ethan Coen and Tricia Clark are doing. And I want to see the third one because Drive Away Dolls was great fun. Honey Don't's great fun. And I'm looking forward to the third one. So I watched that and had a good time with it. And the last and most disappointing thing I watched, and this is going to be controversial because, you know me, I don't steer away from controversy if I think it's justified. 1978 Superman. I want to rewatch that because I'd been up in the shelves and I was cataloging things on the database. And I thought, I haven't watched that in a long time. I will rewatch the 1978 Superman. And I didn't love it. Yeah, it's on Blu-ray. It's a reasonable quality. But it's so bloody slow to start. You get all of the stuff on Krypton with Marlon Brando and Harry Andrews and Susanna York. And that drags your ass for half an hour or more. You get the trip to Earth where Superman gets all the knowledge of the human race, but never actually uses it because Clark Kent and Superman never seem to have that extensive encyclopedic knowledge of things. It's never manifested in the grown-up Superman. And then you get Superman's childhood and teenage years, which adds bugger all to the plot. And then you get Clark Kent going to work in the Daily Planet and Lois Lane, and Margot Kidder's klutzy Lois Lane, who does a lot of screaming in the movie. And you get Christopher Reeve playing Clark Kent and Superman, and he's kind of dull. I think David Corenswet's a much better Superman than Christopher Reeve. His Superman has all the same qualities of, Kansas corn-fed innocence, but there's a lot more meat on the bone in Corenswet's version than there ever was in Christopher Reeve's. And the bit flying around where Margot Kidder intones a poem about falling in love with a friend from another star, all that stuff. It's just filler. It's boring as fuck. It doesn't work. Yeah, absolutely. Glenn Ford's super underutilized. Hi, Deborah. How you doing? Lee says I'll have to watch Honey Don't plus Drive Away Dolls. We'll check it out, Lee. But yeah, the 1978 Superman just didn't hit. And there's also some really red flaggy shit that Superman Clark Kent does. Like Superman has a date with Lois on her apartment, which has an enormous penthouse balcony, even though she's just like a journalist. And then Clark Kent knocks on her door to have a date. He's messing with her. He's gaslighting her. He's frigging around with her. He's already just had a wonderful romantic date with her. But then he changes into his cosplay as a human being and knocks on the door to have a date with her. Why? It's crazy. And then you got Gene Hackman playing Lex Luthor. Valerie Perrine's very good playing Eve Teschmacher. And we have Ned Beatty's Otis. Luthor's plan is kind of stupid. Blasting California into the sea so all the property you bought will be worth more. Just doesn't work. Deborah says it's bloody cold here in Nipaluna, but at least the wind has stopped for the moment. Yeah, well, you guys got some crazy winds down there. And I know it gets crazy cold when the wind comes off the mountain. But the 1978 Superman just didn't land for me. I saw it when it came out, and I thought, oh shit, special effects are wonderful. And for 78, the special effects are shit hot. But that script and Christopher Reeve is bland as white bread as both Superman and Clark Kent. He doesn't have the riz for an iconic character. Looks the part, doesn't act the part for me. So that was kind of disappointing. I actually also rewatched the 2025 Superman, and that was great. Adam says that's a bit harsh. No, that's the experience I had, Adam. And there is like things where Clark Kent tells Lois Lane she shouldn't smoke. Mind your own fucking business. You only just met this woman. You're telling her not to smoke? Hi, Friday. Fashionably late as usual. Was finally catching up watching all of the Slow Horses and loving it. Is the new season out yet? Because I haven't watched that yet. And I should, because I deserve it. That was the other thing I was going to mention. There's a whole bunch of character quirks I've got that I think will inform people about how the channel runs. And that rolls into Slow Horses. But before we do that, Deborah said, I really didn't like the Christopher Reeve Superman. Agree with all that you say. Thank you. I tried to go in it with the intention of enjoying it. But these red flags just flew up at me all the time. Ferrani says the latest season of Slow Horses is partway through showing. Okay, I'm going to dip into that later. Got some stuff to do this afternoon, but then I'll dip into it. But so I'll put down some character quirks I've got that inform what happens on the channel. First off is I will never use honorifics. And this relates to Slow Horses because Gary Oldman just got a knighthood. And I don't do honorifics under any circumstances. Not because the people who are being honoured don't deserve to be recognised, because for a lot of them they do. But I don't believe in honorifics being given by unelected hereditary monarchs. I'm really not in favour of that at all. And so I won't give it any oxygen. I think there's got to be a better way to honour people than having that inbred geezer hit him on the shoulder with a sword. It's just a personal opinion and people can disagree with it. But I acknowledge the qualities of people who get those awards for the most part. But I don't acknowledge that that geezer has the right to do it. DB Cooper says, Christopher Reeve and Kyle MacLachlan are about the same in my mind. They don't really have the gravitas for certain roles. I think Kyle MacLachlan has improved. His more recent work has been pretty well informed as a character actor. But I don't know if he ever really had the riz to carry a movie himself. Tom said, I really watched Death Trap that Christopher Reeve made with Michael Caine. Yeah, I think he did better in that one because he was playing the darker side of that stereotype. And that can always work for an actor. Lee says it's similar to when I rewatched some of the John Hughes Brat Pack movies. They did not land well in the 2020s. Very misogynistic and patriarchal. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so yeah, I'm not going to watch the other Superman movies, the other three that Christopher Reeve did, and the one that Brandon Ruth did. Maybe watch the Brandon Ruth one because I like him a little more than I like Christopher Reeve in the role. Though it was, of course, made by Bryan Singer, who is in a number of ways a piece of shit. For a video, I may do a tier list of Superman actors and just make a bit of a fun video doing that and pissing off all the right people. But yeah, so Ferrani says, I'm with Benjamin Zephaniah in the comments he made when he was offered the OBE and famously refused it. There are a number of people who have. I think there are certain lines you've got to draw in the sand where you don't cross that line. And yes, it probably will help somebody's box office if they get a knighthood or a damehood or whatever. But you really got to. I think Michael Sheen may have handed his one back as well. Good Welsh actor. I think he handed his honours back as well. Yeah. Deborah says, I agree with Lee regarding John Hughes and Kyle. He was also really good in Fallout. Cool. And Dick says, cool bit like the James Bond video did. Yeah, I think I will do a Superman tier list and go into details about why I think people are as they are in the list. So I'm going to go back as far as Kirk Allen because I like Kirk Allen's Superman. He seemed to have fun with it. Lee says, the shame about the classic Superman films are a mainstay of my childhood Christmases. Yeah, I think that the use-by date is long ago for those movies. And they also, the way it's put together seems clumsy. You got the three phases. You got Krypton, you got Clark growing up in Kansas, and you got the modern day stuff where he can't handle death, so he turns back time to resurrect Lois Lane, which is not a power Superman has. I think it's a very clumsily put together film, and we only realise that now. Lee's going to see Michael Sheen in a play next year. Good. Sheen's doing fantastic work, and he's just one of those actors who has like superhero level of skill at what he does, and he thinks it through. There's been a couple of interviews with him that have been on YouTube recently where he talks about his process and how he does things. And it's just fascinating just seeing the engine under the hood of an actor's career and how they've got all the same doubts that I have when I'm doing a video I'm not sure about, and other people do when they're stepping outside their comfort zone. All that stuff actors have. It's the same as any of us, except they're doing it on a much larger stage. Adam said Jim Broadbent turned down an honor. He said his dad wouldn't have approved. Yeah, I mean, that those honorifics given out like Maundy money don't leave a good taste in my mouth. Friday says, for those not familiar, Benjamin Zephaniah is a black poet from Handsworth in Birmingham. Even if you think you don't like poetry, please give some of his work a listen. It's absolutely fantastic. Cool, I will. Yeah, it's the world's changing, and it's changing in two directions. Like this, Trump and all of his fascism there. But there's also the other side where people are accepting gender diversity and the gender spectrum, the sexuality is a spectrum. That the way people live should have a freedom to it that previously had been shackled, and that we should be more inclusive and more accepting of diversity, and we should be able to build a wall between us and the worst aspects of instrumentalities and organizations and monstrous people. And I kind of like the fact that the internet provides us a platform to express those views and to make people who are marginalized feel as though. I mean, I've got a friend, and she's now in her 60s, who's just come out as trans. And I've known her for 30, 40 years as her previous incarnation. And she's now got the strength, and unfortunately she lives in America, which makes it more problematic. But she's just come out as trans and has opened up a new Facebook page under her new self and is going through all of those things that trans people go through. And the fact that she's comfortable enough to come out, she came out on Coming Out Day, which was a couple of days ago. And yeah, it was a slight surprise, but not too much of a surprise when she came out as trans. But I really like her, respect her. She's done a whole bunch of stuff for the community she's in. And it felt really good that there's a space for her and a space for her experience being her true self for the first time ever. It's heartwarming, and I hope that America pulls away from that anti-trans stuff that Trump is pushing because of people like my friend. And yeah, it's it really brought out the feels in me. Deborah and Ramsar are talking about Fallout. I haven't seen it, but I plan to watch it at some stage. Dick says, following on from the actors that played Bond and now Superman, you could do a semi-regular list of actors in the same role like Sherlock Holmes and other film characters. Yeah, it's got legs, that thing. Lee says, first noticed Michael Sheen in Kingdom of Heaven, loved him ever since. Yeah, he was good in that, which wasn't a great movie. I think the extended version of it's much better, but I'm not particularly a fan of Ridley Scott's work. Friday says, Michael Sheen was researching for a lecture he'd been invited to give. Then, based on what he found out, he realised that he had to give back his gong as he wanted to do the lecture. Yeah, I think he's somebody with a strong moral compass. I think he's also a supporter of Plague Cymru. It's like I said, there's interesting things happening in the world. There's monstrous things happening in the world. We don't necessarily live in a world of gods and monsters, but we live in a world of angels and monsters, people who are on the side of the angels and monsters. And I think Michael Sheen is definitely on the side of the angel. Deborah says, bravo for your friend coming out as trans. I think it's the hardest and bravest thing to do. There's just so much that can hurt you when you come out as trans, particularly at an advanced stage. And I've tried to be an ally for the last 30, 40 years. Started out the other way because of my upbringing, but then I learnt and I met people and I experienced life. Just so fucking gutsy. Tom says, we have anti-Trump demonstrations on the highway overpass every Friday. Thousands of drivers and their passengers read our signs in the course of 90 minutes. Good, Tom. I'm glad you're there. One of the things I want to buy when I've got a couple of bucks is you can get anti-far baseball caps. And I'm going to get one of those. Adam says, what do you think of Ridley Scott says modern films are so mid he started watching his own films again? Well, if Ridley Scott wants to masturbate, good on him. Ridley Scott is a lazy filmmaker these days. He puts 9 cameras around whatever he's filming and then lets the editor do the hard work. Never a fan of his. Lee says, much love and solidarity to your friend who's come out as trans. Yeah. Yeah, I love the fact that we live in a world where that can happen. We didn't always. And when I was about 20, I first met actual gay people. It was a surprise to me, and I was very homophobic. But then I met them, and they were very kind to me, even though I wasn't particularly kind to them. I wasn't violent, but I did use slurs because I grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney, didn't know any better. But I learnt and I listened, and some of the friends I most respect in the world are trans. DB Cooper says, the gumbo I'm cooking is almost ready. Who's hungry? I am. I've only had a small bowl of cereal and I've been up since 4 a.m. I would go a gumbo. I did actually cook up really, really. Lee says, we're all on a journey. Yeah, we are. Yesterday, I found these things in a Chinese grocery store, which are self-heating meals. They've got a packet that you put in water underneath the food, and it generates heat, and it cooks the food. And so I found a hot pot I wanted to try. So I cook up the hot pot yesterday on the kitchen bench because I love the fact that I don't have to use flame or electricity to cook a meal. It's all chemicals. It was so bloody hot. That hot pot was so spicy. And I'm pretty good with spice, but this was like Szechuan level spicy. And it cleared my sinuses out enormously. And I love those self-heating meals because they're easy. And I love the idea of you got this little kind of cloth packet full of chemicals. You stick at the bottom of your food. You put water on it. You come back 15 minutes later and you got a hot meal. It's like magic. It's alchemy for me. So I do a bit of that. And so I'll be up for Gumbo. Dick says, for me, Ridley Scott commenting on modern films being poor, considering his own recent output, is like an old saying of the pot calling the kettle black. Yeah, it is like that. I think Ridley Scott should be more encouraging of younger filmmakers and people who are doing something different and something outside the envelope and new voices telling new stories in new ways. I think as a movie fan, I would hate to be the kind of movie fan that Ridley Scott is a movie director. I think bitching about younger generations and what they do is the last gasp of a dinosaur. I never want that to be me. Lee says, saying that, I do like Alien, about the only one of his films in my top 20. Yeah, Alien's basically a haunted house movie in a spaceship. That's ultimately what it is. It's not science fiction, really. It's a horror movie. Rams, I said, the early Ridley Scott 74 to 84 was the best duelist Alien. The Chanel number 5 ads, Blade Runner, Roxy music videos, and Apple Mac ads. Yeah, because basically Ridley Scott was an ad man. He did advertisements from, I think, the 1960s onwards. Don't diss Alien. I didn't diss it. I just put it in the correct genre. By the way, I found out that Tron Ares is tanking. And Red Letter Media did a good video about it. And I agree with them. I never found the Tron movies interesting. They had great music and great special effects. But beyond that, they were cardboard. And again, that's a controversial opinion. But I never really liked the Tron movies. What else have we got? Yeah, that one. I'm going to talk about. Adam said they dissed the Wendy Carlos soundtrack, which made me a bit sour-faced. I think they not so much dissed it as they kind of disregarded it. But Dick says, I do like Legend, but darker US edit, not the European edit. Legend's funny because they got the last two unicorns in Legend. And if you look closely, they're both males. So that's not going to end well. But yeah, hi, Boomer Doug. Your experience mirrors my narrow upbringing. I was quite homophobic until I briefly studied seeing art at a college of art. I was one of 3 straight guys. Met some amazing people, absolutely. And amazingly patient people too, I met. And I'm so glad I did. I would hate to be the 68-year-old version of who I was at 20. And I look at a whole bunch of Facebook groups that are regionally based around places I used to live in and where I grew up. And there are all these people who are superannuated versions of who I was at that age. They got the same racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic mindsets that they grew up with. They never went out into the world and met people and became their best selves. And I kind of blocked a few of those groups for the simple reason that they were, the evil mirror universe version of me. It was a real confronting thing at the time. Friday says, Alien Haunted House slasher house movie. Star Wars Farm Boy makes good. Kurosawa whip-off. Outland High Noon. Yeah, there are some highly regarded science fiction movies, Friday, that are just basic at their heart. But people love them because they saw them at an impressionable age. Any action film you see at the age of 8, you're going to love forever. It's just the way it is. But people just keep rewatching sequels and prequels and reimaginings, trying to get the buzz an 8-year-old gets from watching an action film. And you're not going to get that. And that's, basically a lot of the big franchises these days are just basically shills for merch. And I think that's disappointing. Adam says, I think the original Tron was so uniquely designed that with the soundtrack cutting-edge tech, I can forgive the screenplay. Screenplay is everything. The words and the ideas are everything. It's like having, you make a woman out of lunch meat and put it in a Givenchy gown. It's still going to be a woman made out of lunch meat. Tom said, I met Cindy Morgan, who acted in Tron at New York Comic Con. It was a nice conversation with her. She since died and made me sad. She was a lovely person. That's nice. Okay, Deborah, see you later. Thanks for coming along. Ramsar says, haven't seen anything in the theatre since One Battle After Another. Nothing to see. Box office tanking. One Battle After Another did 60% of gross outside the US. Yeah. I like One Battle After Another. I think it's a movie that talks to our times the way a lot of other movies don't have the guts to. And when I was going in to see Martin, the Romero film, the audience for One Battle After Another was coming out, and they were all talking about the film. And any movie where the audience pours out of a very, very packed cinema talking about the film is a good movie. Doug says, you're so right, I have little in common with old friends that have moved on. To my surprise, I've made many new like-minded friends via YouTube. That happens. We create communities. I actually talked to my psychologist about this week. And I said the best thing human beings do is make communities. You can make good communities or bad ones, but we do it almost instinctively. And I think it's one of the finer qualities of the human mind. Adam says, Tron was the only film I saw with my dad, so it has a special place. Yeah, again, that kind of connection makes movies much better. I never saw a movie with my father, but then he was a prick. But I appreciate that connection. I saw one with my mum. I remember the very first movie I ever saw was with my mum. So I do understand that connection, Adam. Franny says, the original Tron was disappointing, different and visually interesting, but not a good movie. No, Disney tried to make science fiction, but it didn't understand science fiction. It did the same with The Black Hole. Did not understand the first thing about science fiction any more than George Lucas did. Tom says, my favorite scene in One Battle After Another is one with a pregnant woman shooting a machine gun. I was wondering what that did to the baby. Turned out the kid was okay, but my favorite scene is still the car chase. The car chase in One Battle After Another is a masterwork. It's just so well shot, so well edited, so well scripted and plotted and acted. Magnificent stuff. Adam says, what's the first movie I remember seeing at the cinema? Mine was Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Lee said mine was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was Move Over, Darling with Doris Day. And Thelma Ritter's in that movie as well. I saw it with my mum. We rarely got to go to the cinema because we were incredibly poor. But my mother went to a magistrate and got child support money from my father and decided to splash out. So her and I went into Sydney City on the train and saw a movie and had a nice lunch. And the movie was Move Over, Darling. Lee saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the old cinema in Real. Cool. Old cinemas are the best cinemas. I just love going to the Astor for that reason. Art Deco, beautiful cinema. Just a great experience, that place. Where's my phone? I think I've got a picture of the Astor on my dog and bone. Yeah, I'll hold up the camera, but that's the inside of the Astor. Lee says the old cinema is a bingo hall now. That's horrible. Got another one too with the sign outside him. Where did I put that one? I must have shot it, but there it is. There is the sign outside the Astor. Dick says, I know it limits my exposure to new modern movies, but I'd rather spend an evening watching films like Land of the Time Forgotten, Wall of Atlantis, and relive the fun movies bring. Yeah, that's an option, Dick, but for me, I don't want nostalgia to be a trap that I can't get out of. And so I like watching new movies. And the fact that I've got the Film Critics Association card means I can go and see them at no cost. But the obligation is I then have to review them. I like keeping that flexibility in what I like. Watching a movie like Honey Don't was fun for me because it's not like a movie in the past. And there are interesting, quirky films that keep happening. So I'm really invested in seeing what new people and new voices and new creative people are saying and doing. I'm not always going to like it. I mean, it'd be stupid. 20-year-olds who are film buffs don't like every film. But I want to keep that ability to see what's happening. And I love it. Franny says, I remember going to see Warlord of Atlantis with my father when it was AA, adult accompaniment. It wasn't a great movie, but I did enjoy it, and I love the B feature. Yeah, I travelled enormous distances to see Warlord of Atlantis. Ridiculously over the top of loads of Art Deco style and Doc Savage, yeah. Doug says, the first film I remember seeing was either Goldfinger or Mary Poppins. But my boomer memory is fading, but it's definitely one of those. I saw Mary Poppins. We did a school excursion into Sydney City and went to King's Cross, which is the red light district in Sydney in the 60s. And saw Mary Poppins at the Metro in King's Cross on a really rainy day. And they crammed 2 school buses full of kids to see it. It was fun. Ramazan said, the outdoor Vista Vision shot scenes, including car chases and one battle after another, are outstanding in IMAX. I became a fan of Vista Vision after watching The Brutalist in IMAX. I haven't seen an IMAX yet. And I shocked a couple of people when I was at the Astor last, telling them I haven't been to IMAX. But I'm going to do it before the end of the year. I'm going to find a movie I want to see at IMAX and see it. Move Over Darling, wasn't that with Rock Hudson? No, I think it was James Garner. I'm pretty sure it was James Garner. Give me a sec. James Garner, Thelma Ritter, Chuck Connors, Polly Bergen, and Don Knotts is in it as well. First thing I saw in the cinema says Dick was the 70s Spider-Man pilot, which was released here in the cinemas. It was released here in Australia as well. I went to the Hoyts cinema in Sydney to see the Spider-Man movie, and I never saw the end of it because some asshole phoned in a bomb hoax to the cinema and they had to evacuate the building. They never let us back in to finish watching the movie. Dick says, on the spin side of things, the last film I saw it was Dark Knight Rises in the cinema. That would have been a while ago. Yeah, Thelma Ritter is great. I did a whole video about why Thelma Ritter should have got an Oscar. Lee says, I felt a bit sick watching an IMAX film. Only gimmicky thing I liked was 4D with the rumbling seats and sprays of water. Ian says, I think mine was A Man Called Flintstone. I saw that in the cinemas. I love A Man Called Flintstone. It's got some nice songs in it too. And for Hanna-Barbera, it's very imaginative animation. They really kind of put their foot off the brake making A Man Called Flintstone. Franny says, I went to see Spider-Man 2. Didn't realise the actor was in The Sound of Music. Yeah. Nicholas Hammond now lives in Australia and has for decades. And he's still doing some character work. Dean says, how much time do we have left? We have about 3/4 of an hour, exactly 3/4 of an hour, Dean. So you're doing okay. There's still time. Next thing I want to mention, my friend Jim Mulvihill, who's a lovely film critic and film reviewer in England, sent me a Facebook message saying, did you know there's an actor who's got the same name as you who turned up in an episode of Roy Rogers' TV show in the 1950s? And I did. There's a Terry Frost who was a character actor. And I first saw his name when I was watching an episode of The Adventures of Superman in the early 1960s and saw my name on the credits. So it's really interesting when you find someone famous, and there are two famous people with my name on, and you go, oh, gee, I'm not unique. But I kind of like the fact that a B character actor who mostly appeared in Westerns and an English abstract artist share my name. If you do a Google image search on my name, you get a whole bunch of abstract art come up because of Terry Frost, who was a abstract artist in England. Lee says, I never knew they did a feature-length Flintstones animation. Yeah, they did, Lee, and it's fun. It's a spy movie pastiche. Doug says, Movie Over Darling is great. Love those 60s Doris Day movies. My favourite is Glass Bottom Boat with Rod Taylor. Yeah, that one. And there was also one that she did, a spy movie called Caprice. She did with Richard Harris. D. says, hi, I've been film festivaling lately. I saw Yorgos Lanthimos' remake of Save the Green Planet, Begonia. Not as good as the original, but it does give it a Western Post QAnon spin. I want to see Begonia. And I'll probably have to go to Yarraville to see it, but I want to see Begonia. Carol Burns said, I went to a school with a lad called Roy Rogers. Yeah, that's the old joke, Carol. Roy Rogers, doesn't everyone? Adam said, I went to the Royal College of Art in London and Terry was there doing the screen printing class. Cool. Doug said, apparently I was named after Douglas Fairbanks. Not sure it was junior or senior. Yeah, senior's in that box set of The Thief of Baghdad that Imprint did. And it's a good swashbuckling movie. Dick said, the film I watched most in the cinema was 1989 Batman film back in the days. You had to wait for ages for a film to come out on home media. So I went and saw the movie maybe 12 times. Carol said, that joke went over my head. Carol, Rogers and Rogering are a synonym for intercourse. So Roy Rogers means Roy Screws. And the answer to that is, doesn't everyone? It's like Buck Rogers, doesn't everyone? Same joke. Tumblewind. I'm not sure what that is, Dalek Lives Matter. But yeah, I really like famous namesakes. I've got friends who've got weird names, and I know there's somebody historical who shares the same name as them. Dick said, I was going to explain it to her, so you say it'd be a job. My work here is done. I am a river to my people, Dick. Yeah, so let's see what else have we got on the list. Let's see. Tom said, I recently watched Douglas Fairbanks in 1922's Robin Hood. Great movie. I saw that a long time ago. Still like the one with Errol Flynn. I think that's peak Robin Hood movie because everybody seems to be having such fun. And even though it is an Academy ratio, it's still in Technicolor and beautifully made. That fantastic score. Is it Eric Wolfgang Korngold did the score? Either way, it's fantastic. Carol says, I'm afraid Dick and my friends are used to explaining jokes to me. It's a funny one, though. I like a good filthy joke. Here's something else I noticed, which relates back to the theme of this live stream, which is AI SLOP. If you listen very carefully when you're watching ads, whether it's on television or online, you got real people, and they're not AI people, they're real people face the camera like this. And they're reading a script for the ad. But the syntax and the sentence structure and the grammar is ChatGPT. So you've got the word salad of ChatGPT. Someone's generated a ChatGPT script for this ad read. And they've got a real human being spouting out AI ChatGPT large language model jargon. And it sounds wrong. It sounds deeply dissonant. But I'm noticing that more and more when I'm not paying attention to, but watching ads. Ravens, I said, I rewatched the Rock Hudson rom-com movies, Pillow Talk, Lover Comeback, Send Me No Flowers, Man's Favourite Sport, highly enjoyable, Doris Day and Tony Reynolds. Yeah, I mean, Doris Day and Rock Hudson had such rapport and kind of friend chemistry rather than romantic chemistry. I mean, you can tell when people are really into each other romantically in a movie, when the actors just have that spark. But I think the fun friendliness of Rock Hudson and Doris Day makes the movie work because it is kind of low key and not really sexualized. It makes that kind of rom-com really hit. Dalek Lives Matter says, I know a man called Marcus Aurelius. That's one hell of a name. Big up to his parents. Yeah. Carol says, the only film I saw twice at the cinema was Phantom Menace. Didn't pay either time, thankfully. Yeah, you went the second time just to wonder whether you saw what you saw. DB Cooper says, I missed a few episodes over the past several months, so I didn't hear you have got a chance to watch La Moustache. I've got a copy of La Moustache, but I haven't watched it yet, DB. Is AI the new bogeyman in cinemas? Dean says. Here's my take on it. AI isn't particularly a threat. The billionaires who run AI are the threat. The rich people who use that as a tool of suppression and repression and a tool against the people are the threat. AI is just the hammer. It's the arsehole at the other end of it that you got to worry about. And the threat of AI taking over the world is something that billionaires worry about because they have so very much to lose. But at this stage, it's not going to happen. It's just going to make a lot of people very unhappy. And that's different. So AI isn't the threat. Unprecedentedly rich people is the threat. Dick says, watch The Rocketeer about 4 times in the cinema, Dick Tracy about 3 times. Prices were so much cheaper back then, I had time to kill, so I watched stuff multiple times in my teens and early 20s. Dick Tracy's another one you can do that joke with. Dick Tracy, don't even know her. What's the best romantic spark in cinemas? I say Wendy Hill and Roger Livesey, and I know where I'm going. It's awkward and difficult. There's a few of them. Ava Gardner could do it with anybody. Young Ava Gardner in movies. You could tell she was a bit of a fond of a romp. And she had the ability to project sexiness really, really well. It's a quality that Margaret Qualley has in Honey Don't. Her and Aubrey Plaza have a sexual chemistry in that film that really, really hits. It's amazing. It just sizzles totally. Ramsar, thank you. $4.99 US, which is $317 Australian. Thank you, mate. Fart gun. Thanks, mate. Carol, like all tools, it's the thing about how it's abused. Yeah. And I think there are uses for AI, particularly in research. It's good at sorting through and pattern recognizing, which is what essentially is a pattern recognition system. And it's being used for a lot of pharmaceuticals, a lot of identifying cancer cells in samples. There are legit uses for AI. Making a picture of Elvis as Captain Kirk is not one of them. Friday says, I love the movie where Rock Hudson plays a fishing column expert who doesn't fish. So much more interesting when you know he was in the closet. My favorite Hudson role will always be Seconds. It was his best role. A man pretending to be something he wasn't. It was instinctive and intrinsic to Rock Hudson. Boomer Doug rewatched Thunderball last night. The opening scene of Bond beating up the guy in drag. His clue was that he opened the car door by himself. What the? Yeah. There's a lot of cringe in early James Bond. But the funniest thing in early James Bond and in the Sean Connery movies is a line that was written by Roald Dahl for You Only Live Twice, where Bond's getting bathed by all the geisha girls, and they've got big sponges with soapy, bubbly sponges. And one of them starts washing his chest and his belly with this big sponge. And he looks at her and says, don't get soap in my eye. Now, that's funny. Carol, have to explain that one to you. Dean said, recently saw Megan 2. Are you rich folks recognizing AI fits your commentary? And it was an abysmal film. I think it was a very weird film. I think it was less interesting than the first one, but it was kind of okay. D. says, advise everyone to look out for a Kenyan Nigerian film called One Woman, One Bra. Good mix of seriousness and humor with a really good central performance from Kenyan actor Sarah Carell. Like I said, new stories from new people. It always hits, D. Lee, and I'll keep an eye out for that. Carol says, just saw a photo of a kid who dressed up as a fart for Halloween. He had your fart gun for sound effects. That kid has a future. How'd you guess? I just looked at him and went, oh, you missed that. Yeah, AI is something that kind of came out of left field. Ramsar said, watch 13 Italian neo-realist movies by Rossellini, Vittorio De Sica, Federico Fellini, Michelangelo Antonioni. This is after 20 Golden Age Japanese movies. Next is French New Wave movies. Cool. I had fun watching them a couple of months ago. I like Rossellini stuff. I really like Voyage in Italy with George Sanders and Ingrid Bergman. That just hits for me. And Stromboli. I mean, just fantastic stuff. Ian said, I watched a few Aki Kaurismäki movies lately. It's such a great eye for the mundane. Dean says, on a plane for Tokyo tomorrow, what's your favorite Japanese dish? I like onigiri from Kombini. That's a nice little snack food. But whatever Japanese, there's two. First one is, wherever you are in Japan, get the local version of ramen, because there are a million variations of ramen regionally in Japan. So get a local ramen dish from wherever you are. And the other one is, if you get to Osaka, go to Dotonbori and try the takoyaki balls. They're fantastic. They're going to burn your mouth. They're volcanic for about 20 minutes after they make them. But standing on the bridge at Dotonbori looking at the Glyco sign and eating takoyaki balls is just the best. And they put that those fish flakes on the tops that writhe while they're hot. Fantastic food. I didn't have a bad meal in Japan anywhere. Did I go to McDonald's? No, I didn't go to McDonald's. Sal went to McDonald's, but I don't think I went to McDonald's. But Japanese food is universally fantastic. Carol said, I've been listening to old 80s movies recently while working. 3 Men and a Baby, Little Lady, Pretty Woman, silly nonsense, but it makes me smile. Comfort movies. Yeah, why not? I think the original version of 3 Men and a Baby is better, the French version. But then the original versions, for the most part, are always better. Let's have a look. I've got my list here. Yeah, I want to say, there are people whose movies I won't ever show or talk about on the channel. I'm not going to make a list, but I've got a list of movies whose main actors or whose creators are people I find totally repugnant. And I won't do their movies. And a lot of it's to do with my personal triggers. Men who abuse women are one of them. But not all men who abuse women. It's just a very personalized thing. So if there are people I don't do you think I should have done on the channel, tell me. And I'll politely tell you if I'm not going to deal with that person or whether it's somebody I'm going to look at. But I got my own quirks. I mean, I do have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So there are going to be things that don't hit for me. So I just thought I'd mention that on the channel. There are going to be creators and actors and everybody else that I don't cover on the channel. And if they're your favorites, I'm sorry. But there's stuff that I find too difficult for me to do a video about. Carol says, speaking of comfort movies, what are your comfort movies for Halloween and Christmas? Die Hard. Always watch Die Hard at Christmas. There's that. I don't tend to watch religious films at Christmas or other holidays. Halloween, I try to watch something new and interesting as far as horror movies are concerned. And usually, I think particularly Umbrella throw me some stuff around this time of year, which I haven't watched and I find interesting. I'm thinking this year what I might do before the end of the month is rewatch Psycho, because I haven't seen Psycho for a long time. Not the version with Vince Vaughn, of course, but the original version I'm going to rewatch and just see how it hits in 2025. But Christmas movies is always Die Hard. Harold and Kumar's Christmas movie, I watched that as well. But that's about it for now on those. Adam says, if Chili doesn't do your sinuses, what movie makes me cry? I'm not a bot, by the way. I know you're not a bot, Adam. I cried at the end of The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, where Theo Kretschmer-Schuldorf explains being a refugee. I think you'd have to be heartless never to cry at the end of The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. That one always hits for me. And I cry at the end of Will Penny with Charlton Heston, because it's just such a moment and the best bit of acting Charlton Heston ever did. Dean says, well, Skip's co-host studios per your mere comment. No studio tours are located in a residential neighborhood. I don't know, Dean, if you've got that afternoon to spare, you can go down there and just be at an iconic place. But yeah, it doesn't really hasn't been Disneyfied. It's a working place. It's a factory for making miracles. But I'm glad I went down there. But again, if you've got an afternoon in Tokyo, there's a lot of things to do, and that could be one of them. Dick says, I know George C. Scott as mentioned that before. Yeah, George C. Scott's one of my no's on the channel. Arcade Castle says, I always enjoyed the 90s Addams Family movies as comfort movies for Halloween. Yeah, they've got the right tone. There's a real careful tone they have, where you've got the humor and the horror mixed in the best possible way. And the ensemble of actors, Raul Julia, Angelica Houston, Christina Ricci, It just works. Just bang, 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 it works. Dalek Matters Live says, at Ramsay, have you done Takeshi Kitano and Takeshi Miike? They're good to watch as a compendium. Takeshi Miike has made hundreds of movies. You're going to be on a long journey there, Dalek Lives Matter. But Takeshi Kitano beat Takeshi. Incredible. D. says, speaking of namesakes, in the distant past I encountered a Tony Stark and a Thanos. In the same place, same time. Tom Stein said, I cried when I watched The Elephant Man. I felt so sorry for him. Yeah, just an amazing movie. And just such a different movie for David Lynch. Carol says, my Christmas comfort feels is Muppet Christmas Carol. Listened to that the other day. Even Richard will sit through it. Ramsay said, we know you, Terry, with your biases based on past life experiences. Yeah, and I'm kind of comfortable with that. I think there's so much good stuff out there that I can walk around the ones I consider turd piles and not have to deal with them. But I am finding a lot of really interesting movies to talk about, and that's always where I'm going with things. Ralph says, my holiday movies are Jaws and Return of the Living Dead for July 4th. Jaws is a Christmas movie here because people go to the beach at Christmas time here. So the idea of going to a beach in July, unless you go in there to pick up seashells, is anathema to us because of the seasonal differences. Okay, Castle says, Hugo's a comfort Christmas movie, always makes me misty-eyed. And The Man Who Invented Christmas is a yearly tradition as well. It's about Charles Dickens writing A Christmas Carol. Hugo's fantastic. It's just such a love letter to early cinema. And I love the inventiveness of Hugo. I've got it on Blu-ray, and I should drag it out and rewatch it. But at the moment, I'm spending a lot of time on those shelves, sorting out the videos, which I'm going to be happy about once it's done. But yeah, I think it's great that there are movies that can move us to tears and move us to happiness and move us to what the hell just happened. I hate to go through life not being engaged with movies, but movies that really hit us in the feels are incredible. And even things like Looking for Mr. Goodbar, that ending scene, which is not a pleasant experience for a cinema audience, unless you're the sickest of sick bastards. It's still, you feel, and you feel for the character, you feel for the boldness of making that particular scene as they make it. Movies that make us feel are just the best. Ramsar says Dalek Lives Matter. I did rewatch Takeshi Miike's 13 Assassins. Still fantastic. The second half's action is as good as anything ever filmed. Yeah. Dalek Lives Matter watches Pasolini's The Gospel According to St. Matthew every Christmas. Cool. Kara says, I'm a terrible cry at some many films now. I blame the menopause. Yeah, the hormone storms definitely get you there. But yeah, I'm just, it's one of the reasons why I don't watch The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp as often as I should, or as often as I want to, or The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. The feels, there are times when I don't want to feel sad and I don't want to cry. So I'm kind of rationing those movies, incredible as they are. And I just got a deal where I got Umbrellas of Cherbourg on 4K, and I haven't watched it on 4K yet. But I probably will sometime soon. Yeah, movies with those feels are rare and precious and wonderful. And I really want to treasure that part of them. Brian says it was a pretty decent film. I wish more people had seen Under the Boardwalk from 2023. Cool. Add that to the list. Dick says my favorite Christmas movie, The Silent Partner with Elliot Gould and Christopher Plummer. Yeah, there's a kind of ambiguous sexuality to Christopher Plummer's character there that makes it even more interesting. And being set, is it in Toronto or Montreal or somewhere at Christmas time, makes it a bit different from American set films. Carol says, mind you, you can say the film or book did this job if you're emotionally connected with it. Sad, happy, or angry. Yeah. It's a value added to get an emotional response to a movie, unless it's nausea. And so sometimes films are so beauteous that you're moved that way. Many of the Powell and Pressburger films. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a magic to being able to evoke strong emotions in an audience. Horror movies do it at a very visceral and basic level. But to kind of trigger sadness the way Umbrellas of Cherbourg's ending does, the kind of wistfulness and acceptance of the past, even though it is sad. That level of artistry is magical to me. And having Anton Walbrook do that dialogue at the end of The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, based on the experience of so many refugees at the time, is just a moment in history caught on film. It's like the singing of La Marseillaise in Casablanca, where everybody singing La Marseillaise is a refugee from the Nazis. That is lightning in a bottle in what would have otherwise been a B picture by Warner Brothers. Sometimes magic happens on screen, and we should treasure it. Dick says, Cash on Demand is a good Christmas movie. Carol likes that one. Yeah, low budget hammer crime movie. Cash on Demand really hits. I like it a lot. I've got it on DVD in a box set. But yeah, just there's emotional resonances in movies. And even something as kind of prosaic as a comedy that makes you laugh. Watching the kind of man babies in Step Brothers is terrific. And the bit where John C. Reilly's character and Catherine Hahn are having an assignation in a men's room, and it's his first time having sex. And John C. Reilly ad-libs this line where he goes, "Oh, it's slippery," in surprise. That shit really breaks me up. I love Step Brothers because of that random insanity and the humor of it. And humor itself is an emotional response. Tom Stein says Monsters Go Home is a good Halloween movie with the original TV cast. Yeah, and Carol says Cash on Demand is like a play, limited cast and sets, but very effective. All comes down to the acting. Peter Cushing and Andre Morel. Cash on Demand is a movie people should see. Franny says, as a child, I was inconsolably sobbing at the end of The Jungle Book. Great movie. As a child, I couldn't understand why we would abandon his friends. My CPTSD was evident even then. Yeah, I can see that. And Carol says, Watership Down made me bored. Yeah. They don't tell you that rabbits are going to die when you're a kid, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, we started out talking about AI slop, but we come down to how movies evoke an emotional response in people. So I'll throw this at you towards the end of this live stream. What's the funniest moment in a movie that you see, that you appreciate? That's just not one of the obvious answers. Something a bit off to one side. What's your funniest movie moments? Carol says, I'm running out of power, so be listening, but no more comments. That's okay, Carol. Thank you for being part of the chat and part of the live stream. Always appreciate you and Dick. Dick says, the end of Gattaca has made me cry. The character finally gets his dream and the emotional soundtrack. Gattaca is an underrated science fiction movie. It's a science fiction movie that's about something. It's also about people and about perseverance and about how people refuse to be pigeonholed. Carol's Friday says to Carol, it's pure childhood trauma, Watership Down, but a fantastic moment. I still bought the 4K when it came out. Ralph says that Casablanca scene is also instructive to show me how to beat fascists. Yep, you got to sing. And don't let them get their way, because they crumble when you don't let them get away. They get sillier and sillier and fragile, which is what these protests are about. The Portland protests with the frogs are genius moves. And there's a bit you can see on the newsreel footage where one of the ice people tries to hit one of the frogs with pepper spray and puts it into the tail end of the frog instead of the base end, thinking that'll go into the costume, and it doesn't, because that stuff's heavier than air. Adam says, hey, where are the white women at? Yeah, Blazing Saddles is full of those moments of magic. And the more you know about Marlene Dietrich, the funnier Lily von Stupp is with Madeline Kahn in Blazing Saddles. Ramsay said, I finally watched my Tales of Hoffman on Blu-ray. Fantastic set designs and weird vignettes. Yep, it's got one of my favourite old school Australian actors in it too, Robert Helpman. Fantastic dancer, fantastic actor. Tom says, Borat contains the funniest scene in the movie, part where Borat takes his daughter into a men's room toilet. I almost died laughing. Yeah, Borat's got that kind of cringe humour about it, which is just over the top silly. It's also a bit racist. Friday says, it's true. Yeah, Liv von Stupp. Just so much fun. I should rewatch Blazing Saddles again. I've got the Blu-ray. I put it on the database the other day. Yeah, I should rewatch that. Dick says, it's very uncanny when I heard the name Laughing Gravy in a Laurel and Hardy movie. I laughed at it for days to the annoyance of my mum and dad. Don't know about Laughing Gravy, but I like Wavy Gravy. It was at Woodstock. And if you look at the Woodstock documentary, which is a great doco, Wavy Gravy comes up on stage and, shit's gone wrong. The toilets are not working. There's food problems. There's all sorts of problems at Woodstock. And he comes up on stage and says, there's always a little bit of heaven in a disaster area. And that's one of the great quotes in the movie. But any other funny bits? Because I'm resting my throat. Someone said to me, if you're going to do a long talk like this, which a live stream essentially is, you should drink soup beforehand. So I'm going to try soup next time, I think. Because you do get a little bit of a rough throat after 2 hours of talking. Or at least I do. And sun's come up. The weather's good. Dalek Lives Matter says, bad Chrome Power with Johnny Knoxville. Lots of belly laughs in that. I remember seeing that, but I don't remember much about it. But what other funny ones do I know? Let's see. I'm trying to work it out. Spaceballs is full of it as well. Brian Dawkins, $50 never killed anyone. Used cars, 1980. Ralph says, AFK, what was the name of that Hammer documentary I talked about earlier? I'll get it for you here. It won't be a sec. And it's there. Hammer, Heroes, Legends, and Monsters. That's what it was. Tom said, I met Wavy Gravy at a Grateful Dead concert in 1970. Fun times. Yeah, he did seem to be a nice guy. Ian says, there's something about Mary made me laugh at certain scenes. I'll tell you, there's something about Mary's story. I saw there's something about Mary in Times Square in New York City when I did like 5 movies in a day in Times Square. And there's something about Mary. I'm in an audience of 90% black people who were laughing at all the stupid white people up on the screen. And I loved it. It made such a richer experience. And yeah, the hair gel scene and all the rest of it. Just watching white people do dumb things seemed to be very cathartic for the audience I was with. And I really liked that. Almost every line from Jason Statham in Spice is funny. Jason Statham, I think, has got a good line of humour. If he does dry humour, Jason Statham really hits. Ramsay said, 3 Men in a Boat 1975 when they try to open cans of food without the proper tools. 3 Men in a Boat is just, there's so many good versions of it. There's a 1950s one with Jimmy Edwards. It just really works. Friday says, and the end credit bits too. Yeah. Gattaca is a slow burn, says Ramsay. Yeah, but I think it's worth it. I think Gattaca builds its world and its characters really well. D. Lee says, The Shop Around the Corner is a great Christmas film. I really don't like, and what am I thinking of? I really don't like It's a Wonderful Life. And Middle-Aged Geek Girl is up and awake. Hey.
Hello, everybody.
She's awake. I've got to make a coffee when I finish the chat.
I had a very rough night, so yeah, just got up.
She's just got up.
So yeah.
So we managed without her, but we missed her.
Yes. Just want to say hi. I hope you're all doing well. And that's it.
Okay.
And I'll let you finish your story.
Okay, cool. So 1931 movie Laughing Gravy with Lauren Hardy. Yeah. I'm going to have to find a new Christmas film, I think, for this year. I've got some, as I mentioned previously. But I should get some more. That's the thing with Middle-Aged Geek Girl. I make her coffees all the time. She never makes me coffee because she won't grind the beans and tamp them into the portafilter and do all that stuff for me. So what I need is an in-house barista. Trances is a Christmas movie. And I like Trances. I actually got it on 4K because I got one of those deals where it turned up cheaply on 4K. And you don't have to worry about region coding with 4Ks. Yeah, Trances is fun. I do like Trances. Let's see if we've got a message. But Dick says, I love the scene in one of the Pink Panther films with Clouseau repeatedly falling into a castle moat. I never really hit with the Pink Panther films. The only bit I like is when Fran Jeffrey sings Melio Stasera in the first one. That's hot. But I think Peter Sellers, I liked him a lot more as a dramatic actor than I ever liked him as a comic actor, which again is a controversial take. But there are a few movies where Peter Sellers did some decent dramatic acting. I mean, Being There being the most recent one. But yeah, Friday says, I'm not religious, but I do love The Bishop's Wife at Christmas. Cool. Gremlins is a Christmas movie as well. Gremlins has got the weirdest ending where the family gather around to celebrate Christmas, even though most of their towns got wiped out by the gremlins. So they're like in the middle of Gaza, essentially, but they have a nice, cozy Christmas. Weird tonal shift in that movie. Holy Grail, I'm being repressed. Oh, did you see that? Yeah, Holy Grail's fun. Dalek Lives Matter says there's an Irish film then young offenders about two lads who find a stash of cocaine washed up on the beach. Very funny, but the dialect's hard to follow sometimes, which is why we have subtitles. Ramsar says Mel Brooks came out with two excellent comedies, both in '74, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. He's 99, and they said he wouldn't last. I like a lot of Mel Brooks movies. I like things like The 12 Chairs as well. And Life Stinks, even though it doesn't hit very well a lot of the time. There's a lot of good stuff with Mel Brooks. Tom Stein says A Christmas Story with Darren McGavin is one to watch if you like Christmas movies. That never showed here. It really wasn't a thing here at all. I keep hearing about it, but I haven't seen it. But yeah, Mel Brooks, just that comic timing. I like the original producers as well. Don't like the musical version with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, but I love the original version of the producers. That is, balls achingly funny. The Killer Rabbit of Cameron, yeah. The Killer Rabbit works because bunnies are innately funny, as Bugs will tell you. But yeah, little fluffy bunnies are innately funny for some reason. It's like little babies falling over. There are some things in the world that are just funny by their very nature. Boom, boom, boom. So we're down to the last 4 minutes. Still got time for super chats. Still got time for the fart gun if it's applied correctly. What else do we have? Do I have anything on my list? Yeah, the only problem I've got. Here she goes. What's she doing?
No, keep going. I just want to be here to say goodbye.
Okay, yeah. One thing I don't like about Halloween, pumpkins. Because I'm allergic to pumpkin. And so every time I see people carving pumpkins and shit, fuck off. I can see what you're doing. You can't do things behind my back when I'm on live stream because it's not behind my back.
Keep going.
Yeah, pumpkins. So you see people carving pumpkins and my skin starts to itch. Like I once worked in a kitchen at a restaurant and every time I made pumpkin soup, my hands got red raw from the reaction to them. So every time I see people carving pumpkins at Halloween in movies, my hands start itching in sympathetic allergy. It's a weird thing, but it happens. You really thought that I couldn't see what you're doing?
No, I knew you could. I was just trying to be silly.
Yeah, well,
For your last 3 minutes, yeah. No.
Keep trying, you'll get there, yeah. She's in a mood. D-Lee says, the Tony Stark and the Thanos he met were different times and places, alas. Adam says, trigger. Yeah, it's a weird thing, names. We're talking about having namesakes who are famous. But, yeah, we're almost finished. It's 2 minutes to go. This one went fast for some reason. Apart from the camera arsing up a bit.
The camera play up again.
The camera played up for a good 5 minutes.
Really?
It was a comedy bit that just went too long.
Okay.
But we got there. And, yeah, so...
For Halloween, we could be two-headed people.
Yeah, we can do the thing with Ray Milland and Rosie Greer, yeah. I should watch those movies again. The thing with two heads.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll watch those.
Fair enough.
But let's have a look. It's almost time, and I'll get to say my thing when the clock ticks over. AI camera, no comic timing. Yeah, well, that's it. AI doesn't have good comic timing. There are some funny AI videos, to be honest, but the hit rate is incredibly low compared to human-made TikToks and threads and things like that. Okay, we really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast, our time has passed, and we must end our show. Listen, everybody, enjoy your sleep because most of you are in the Northern Hemisphere. Enjoy the rest of your day for the people who aren't. Thank you, and thanks to Friday, thanks to Ralph, thanks to everybody who became a part of this, whatever the hell it was. Again, we're going to do it again in 2 weeks, so just look after yourselves, look after each other as well. Be true to your best self. And we will catch you later. And I've still got a couple of moments, so I'm going to keep rambling until then. Really appreciate the support I'm getting on the live streams and everybody who's a part of this and makes it infinitely better than it would be otherwise. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later and take care.